Padres Hot Tub, once again, is proudly presented by Estate Leak Detection and Plumbing. Our man Wally, the only number you need to know if you are in San Diego and something is going wrong at your house. We haven't had much rain lately, but we had big rain a couple weeks ago. Did you find that there was a leak down below your house? Have you had some issue come up with your plumbing? Issue with the toilet, issue with the shower? You never know when a plumbing emergency is going to come up. You do know that if you call the number you see, 619-300-7203, Wally's on the other end, and that means dependability is on the other end of that line, Chris.
If you like this show and you like us, then please write down this number. Wally has made a decision to support the Padres Hot Tub. We would greatly appreciate it if, in the event of an emergency or wet situation, you have this number available. It would mean a lot to us to help you. It would mean a lot for us to help Wally. Take down the number. Something's gonna go wrong with your pipes. It's the worst situation. Craig and I have both been in it in the last calendar year. It sucks. Would have killed for this number. And now a radio professional is going to give it to you.
619-300-7203 would have literally saved me thousands of dollars a year ago if I had known Wally then like I know him now. And he has personally come to my house, taking care of a situation that could have cost me a lot of money and showed me how it didn't need to cost me a lot of money. That's the type of advice I want in my corner, and that's why Wally can be in your corner. So save this number in your phone. Raphie, don't lose that number. 619-300-7203. Padres Hot Tub, everybody. And Elsten, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor. We are back after Labor Day weekend, taking Monday off. Shout out to the working folk of our country, which we are three. Well, one of us, at least. So
I'm on strike. It counts.
That's fair. That's fair. It absolutely counts. September 5th, 2023, we putting this show together. We've got a lot to talk about, guys. And at the end, and make sure you stay for it. You know, I think we're really going to get into the weeds somewhat of how the Padres put their pitching staffs together, the issues that seem to be coming up year after year, and what we might be able to do or not do about it going into 2024. So stay tuned for that. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. New Pods Above Replacement is out, came out on Sunday with Raphie and John Percoda. This week's episode, to tank or not to tank. And how could you tell the difference? Figure it out, listen to it. You might be not surprised to determine that it's better to be really bad than it is to be mediocre.
I'd love to chime in on this one because we all kind of have an idea of the value of a higher draft pick, right? We get one is a lot better than 27 or 28, right? Raphie and John give you actual numbers. They give you tangible figures that show exactly how valuable one is compared to 8 or 18 or 28. It is a really good listening for anybody who's curious about the draft as it comes up in the next year.
Indeed. And specific numbers as to the rules that we don't understand yet in terms of the new CBA and the draft lottery and what are the percentages? And turns out that no matter how bad we do, we'll probably just get unlucky and fall out. So, okay. But great information on the New Pods Above Replacement. Check that out. Video on YouTube. Podcast available in all your feeds. Week 9 of Immaculate Talk with myself and Joe Sheehan, back after taking Monday off today with a great grid filled with Hall of Famers and terrific stories. You're a fan of baseball. I know that because you're watching or listening to this show right now. That means you're going to be a fan of hearing great stories about the great players of the game from the beginning of the game to now. And that's what Joe and I do for about a half an hour Monday through Friday on Immaculate Talk. So check it out. Available wherever you get this show. You can find Immaculate Talk. New Crossing Streams out if you're a Justified fan. Justified City Primeval, full review.
Can you can you give me any quick little sneak peek?
Well, I really liked it.
Yay!
Yeah, I would definitely say if you're a Justified fan, you 100% should watch it. And Ryan Phillips and Ryan Phillips from The Big Lead and I are on that. We did 2 episodes, 2 podcasts talking about the season in whole. So you can check that out again, wherever you get your podcasts. What's the best way to support Padres Hot Tub? It is by supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Our bustling community continues to exist there. And truly, in these tough seasons, like Padre fans, we need to find one another. So I know there's some folks who just come when the comet is burning brightest, but we are excited to be there every day to help be a part of this community. You can help support us if you enjoy this show, if you like the work we do, if you appreciate the fact that we still post up every single week, multiple times throughout this tire fire of a ridiculous season, just a walking nightmare what this season has been. Then you can support us. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. There's several levels to support. $5 a month is super, super affordable. Last thing, a reminder, we are a YouTube channel. And we are creating unique YouTube content. Chris is just kicking ass right now with his YouTube shorts. Raphie, so much funny stuff up on the YouTube channel right now.
We are so lucky to have Chris cranking out so much good content. And also, new people are finding the show that way. It's really exciting to engage with people who don't know about Padres Hot Tub, but the YouTube algorithm just kind of like kicks us over to them because we're talking about Ha-Seong Kim, or we're talking about the latest rules kerfuffle that always seems to be going against the Padres. So please check that out. Chris puts a lot of work in that. He was up until 4 a.m. cooking up content just for you people. So please go over to youtube.com/the @Padres Hot Tub. You will find us there. Subscribe to us. And we've got stuff that you can't find on your podcast feed. So check it out.
Indeed. And as it is September and it's time for September call-ups and taking a look at the future and doing some experimentation, we're going to announce now on today's show that our second show of the week, if you're a fan, we do 2 shows for the free audience every week. We do a couple of shows that are for the Patreon only audience every week as well, which you only get by being a Patreon subscriber. But Group Therapy is the show that we do with our patrons as well. This Friday, 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, 3:30 Eastern time in the United States, we are going to be doing a live group therapy that will be on YouTube. So while our patrons will have the ability to still exclusively check in via a link that Raphie makes on Riverside like we did last week, and we're not sure that we're going to do this all the time going forward, but it's September. It's time for a call-up. It's the Waldron Cauldron version of Padres Hot Tub. So
hope it's a little better than that.
Should we go exclusively to the knuckler, perhaps, and not the 91 mile an hour fastball? So that will be this Friday, 12:30 Pacific time. Group Therapy live on YouTube, and we'll be able to interact with the YouTube chat as well as bringing on still exclusively our patrons to the show. So roll with us as we do this experiment and see how it plays out. Thanks in advance for your understanding, and welcome in advance to new folks who tune into the show because it's live on YouTube.
Yeah, we do appreciate it. This is a community of folks that are in pain. It's been a long year. The story has been the same for months and months and months. I'd say it was a journey of ups and downs. It really hasn't. It's been like walking through frickin' Kansas. So having the patrons, having the Discord to bounce stuff off of every morning. What's wrong with the team? What's doing good with the team? What can we celebrate? And then also tickets. There's just tickets there all the time to go see a game. And if you notice, Petco Park seems to be having fun just about every night. Even when the losses are bad, you can still see people cheering. people wearing Padres gear and enjoying that sense of community. So give it a look.
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because just yesterday on Labor Day, around 12 o'clock, I just popped into the ticket marketplace on our Padres Hot Tub Discord and say, hey, my 3 tickets are up for grabs. And one of our $5 patrons was able to swoop those up. First come, first serve, take his 2 kids to the game and proceed to show those 2 young, impressionable men at 10 and 8 years old what baseball heartbreak looks like, why you should never believe in anything ever, and why magic isn't real.
But I gotta say,
those are important lessons, I think, that we give for just $5 a month.
The magic of going to the ballpark is evident because that team was down 7 runs in the early part of the game.
Yeah.
And watching the last 2 innings live with Petco Park absolutely going nuts in the key situations gave me a little faith. Like it energized me a little bit that, what we're in now sucks, but there's a magical place that 26 dudes go to and sometimes put on a show for us that takes us above where we exist on a daily basis. So, yeah, come to the Discord, get some tickets, go to some baseball games.
All right. I wanted to start the baseball part of the show. Housekeeping done. Thank you for sitting through housekeeping. It's not an essay, so to speak, but just something that really has been pinging in my mind the last couple of days as we are now in the month of September. I remember, so very well, Prop C in 1998. The proposition to fund a public-private partnership to build Petco Park downtown and to transform the gas lamp district, which I think we can all agree Larry Lucchino's vision was universally successful. Petco Park is a great ballpark. The gas lamp district has been transformed. The East Village continues to transform. If you have lived in this city as long as I have, you know what it used to look like and what it looks like now. And it's a completely different and beautiful thing. In 2000, construction on Petco Park was halted. There were 2 years of absolutely terrible baseball as the club litigated its way through 17 different Bruce Henderson-led lawsuits to stop the construction of the park. And during that time, John Moores was quite often in the public sphere, the Padres owner. He would do a number of interviews before Peregrine scandal and all the and his divorce and all the rest of the things that sank his public image. And he had a constant recurring phrase that was part of his boilerplate in his interviews and appearances that became a real big part of, I think, Padres culture for 2 decades. And I'm sure you guys remember it is to play meaningful games in September. That was John Moore's definition of success, of baseball success. Now, keep in mind, before that, right, other than 1998, 1996, other than brief pockets, the Padres rarely played meaningful games in September. The goal in opening Petco Park was for the Padres to play meaningful games in September. And the hollowness of that phrase, how it rang tinnily in your ears, nonetheless, in 2004, 5, 6, 7, the Padres played meaningful games in September every single one of those years. In 2004, they came up short. In 2005, they weren't a good team, but they played meaningful games to win the division with a losing record. And in 2006, they won with a winning record. 2007, of course, went to a game 163. Incredibly meaningful games. At that point, John Moore's got a divorce. Jeff Morad took over the team. Meaningful games in September became a new thing for us to look at and aspire to, because his phrase was payroll starts with a 4. And there was a time very recently in our past when the idea of playing meaningful games in September seemed so far away because we had a payroll between $40 and $60 million. You'd see star-studded teams come in from every other direction. And you just went like, well, how are we ever going to get back to there? And we've gone through Morad, Hoyer's attempt to turn things around, Josh Burns, the Ron Fowler consortium with Carlos Quentin and everything else, and into now AJ Preller for almost a decade. And it became beyond meaningful games in September. It became, we're a championship aspirant. We're a championship level organization and club. And from 40 to 60 million, we've gone to 250 to 270 million in Padres payroll. We're going to go to the all-time attendance record in Petco Park history. And here we are, September 5th, 2023. And these games are meaningless. These games are meaningless. The Padres aren't going to make the playoffs. They aren't going to come close to making the playoffs. And within 2 to 3 weeks at the most, they're going to be officially eliminated from any playoff contention. They're not going to play badly enough to get into a top 5 draft pick. They're going to settle right into that crappy middle that we've lived in forever as Padres fans, playing meaningless games in September, winning games that don't matter, that wind up being the excuses to make bad decisions in the offseason. And it is incredible to me that we've gone from 2000, a stopped ballpark, rebar sticking out of mud downtown, and John Moore's interviews about meaningful games in September, to 2023, the most generous owner in Padres history, the most aggressive GM, and the most star power in the history of the franchise. And we're still not there. We're still not there.
But go to the ballpark, have fun, cheer for the boys as they take on the Phillies.
There was a tweet when the Padres were promoting one of their homestands that was coming up in August, and the tweet was from the Padres: "Let's keep the summer rolling. Tickets on sale." Blah, 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 blah.
Keep the snows for the big homestand. Yeah,
I saw someone reply. I wish I remember who it was. I'm so sorry, I don't. But someone replied to the tweet and said, "This tweet sounds like a threat." Let's keep the summer rolling.
It was mens rea. I saw it.
Yeah. So thank you, Menzie. I appreciate it. I said it last week, and I've said before, like, the feeling of like when is quote unquote it's over is a deeply personal feeling. You know, I like until we are mathematically eliminated, you can come to it's over whenever you want. There are some folks in our Discord who like think it's over a lot earlier than the other people, and that's okay. Like we all bring our own like flavor of fandom to this group, and that's what makes it so special, and that's why I like engaging with the community.
Calling a season over in July and a game over in the second inning is a defense mechanism, and we respect your desire to protect yourself.
Yes, 100%. That being said, where I'm at personally is that it's over, and it's been over for a couple, maybe 2 or 3 weeks now. I think when they, lost to when they got swept by Milwaukee, it was just like, what are we even doing at this point? You know what I mean? That was kind of where I was at. Right. And, we're now seeing articles coming out. Dennis Lin had an article this morning, or yesterday, 2 days ago, time is a flat circle, about trading Juan Soto in the offseason. And that's now being bandied about by the main beat writers. And basically, it just goes right back to what you were saying, Craig. It's like, I'm not trying to counter that argument at all. I think that's like worth discussing, and I'm sure we will discuss it when the offseason comes, et cetera, et cetera. But like, where are we at now that we've now gone through this entire journey and we're talking about selling off a star player in his last year of arbitration? That feels deeply familiar to us as Padres fans, but it's just so much more different. And there was a question on Reddit of like, people were like, is this more disappointing than 2021? Like this collapse. And 2021 was more acute, and we're going to get into 2021 later when we talk about pitching, but there's never been anything like this. There's truly never been anything. The expectations have never been this high. The pressure has never been this high. And the dissonance between where the expectations were and what's been delivered has never been this great, ever. So if you feel uniquely bad, that you're not crazy. You're not crazy.
Yeah.
2021 was falling off of a mountain. 2023 was walking 5 miles through a dry lake bed through the mud after it rained on your giant Burning Man party.
Yeah. Failure
With
to
trench
launch.
foot.
Yeah. Failure to launch is exactly right. Expectation that just never comes. We almost got catfished,
Yeah.
It's like a relationship that just never was real between this club and winning.
We showed up. It was not the person we thought it was going to be.
Xander, is that really you? Very briefly, I want to go through the last 4 games. And I mean briefly because these games are meaningless. So let's not get bogged down, boys. Let's make sure we keep the tempo at 1.25x. So now you want to win? You fucking assholes. Now when all hope's lost, dicks, jerkwads.
They still didn't win 4 in a row, Craig. That's still impossible.
Not.
So
because you can't. It's mathematically, scientifically proven. It's impossible to win 4 games in a row. But 3 straight convincing, dominant wins over the San Francisco Giants over the weekend. Juan Soto homers every day. Someone else homers every day in Tambien. Lights out pitching from every corner for 3 straight days. Gabe Kapler remains MLB's top barrister. If he walks out and talks to the ump, you're in trouble.
Get that man a powder wig.
Serious. Steal it from the Washington Nationals dugout and give it to Kapler and let him walk out with it when he goes in. I mean, I saw your video on Bogarts and I still don't understand. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's the biggest pedant in all of baseball. And yet somehow, thinking of the Breaking Bad gif, he keeps getting away with it. It's just Aaron Paul is me, is my spirit animal. When I think about Gabe Kapler's ability to reverse calls, it's having a material effect on the Padres Giants season series this year. Games that just change. I mean, that game didn't change, but the blocking the plate rule changed the game for the Padres in the series. So F you, Gabe Kapler. And that gets to the only discussion topic, I think, out of the weekend. Another 6 shutout innings for Blake Snell. Another 6 shutout innings for Seth Lugo, who has a 3.5 ERA as a starter in the 2023 National League. I mean, that's Lefty Grove stuff in modern baseball.
It's not sad, but his only incentive in his contract was starts made rather than performance. Like, if he would have written in, hey, can I get an extra $3 million if my ERA is sub 3.5? Like,
but that would have been easy to say, hey, you can get that better in the bullpen when we bring you in for the 6th inning. So, I mean, Lugo is going to be a legitimate option on the free agent market this offseason when he opts out of his contract. As soon as Blake Snell signs with somebody, Lugo and a couple other dudes are going to be out there looking like the next best attractive option. He's going to get a good amount of money to be a starter next year. He's probably going to get, what is he, early 30s?
Yeah, I think he's not a lot of mileage on his arm.
Yeah, he's probably going to get a 4 to 5 year contract to be a starter next season. And it's impossible for me to imagine a scenario where the Padres should give Seth Lugo that contract. As much as it is difficult for me to imagine the Padres effectively replacing his workload that they've brought in this year.
They won this deal, and we've talked about this a lot. Like, when you win the 1-year deal, AJ, like, bank that and put it away. Don't chase. This team has enough guys on long-term deals that are going to be the same. This team's going to be the same largely for a long time. It's okay for you to find the guy next year and win that deal too. Lugo, like you said, Craig, he's going to make $50 million is where I put it at. Even if it's a 3 or 4 year deal, he's going to make a lot of money.
Well,
and
Sorry, Chris. Keep going.
No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, of course, we had the blow up of Shohei Ohtani's elbow, so that instantly took the top free agent off the market.
Yeah, Blake Snell made some money this weekend.
Yeah. Trigger warning for folks, but rest in piss, Julio Urias. He's probably never going to play baseball again. And from a purely cynical baseball standpoint, he was one of the top free agent arms on the market. He's now gone.
Right.
So we're looking at a thinning of the free agent market. You know, Clayton Kershaw, there's no way he doesn't stay in LA. They'll figure something out. Charlie Morton's going to be 40. And, you know, that leaves like Aaron Nola, Eduardo Rodriguez, you know, Marcus Stroman. Again, it's like you're getting down into the sunny grays like of it all. And it's like that's Seth Lugo's right there. So he's now the 5th or 6th best free agent pitcher available potentially. Like, I don't know. It's going to be a lot of money.
It's going to be a lot of money. It's going to be a long commitment for a pitcher in his mid-30s, meaning 4 to 5 years. And the odds of him taking an arm injury in the next year or two are probably between 50 and 75%. As he Verducci's his way to a double innings load this year. But damn, he's been good this year. And that's the kind of mistake that AJ Preller usually makes, is watching one player's one season and then going, well, just do that, copy pasta it for 4 years, and that'll be the next deal. Like, no, that's where you make the big mistake. So it's a bummer in a weird way that we burned a great find and a great deal with Seth Lugo on a meaningless under 500 season, because he's been one of the best free agent signings of the winter.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that does lead to another free agent signing in Waka. I mean, with the developments in the free agent starting pitching market, Waka's 2-year, $32 million option. I won't say it looks good at this point, but it does look more reasonable than it did.
We're picking that shit up, boys. Rafe, I'm sorry. I know you tried to negotiate against John Percoda, Uber agent. Got a text message from Scott Boris after that one. Just it was LOL and a whole bunch of laughing emojis. He's going to get the Padres going to pick up the 232 because that's going to be his market rate once you set this market. And it's going to be obnoxious, but you're going to have at least one arm in the barn. There's not too many arms set up to be in the barn next year right now that you have full confidence in. So put Waka in that list. You wouldn't have full confidence in him either, but he'd be there.
I would honestly say, though, at this point, between the combination of age and innings, Waka's the sort of guy where, like, if he stays healthy, reminder from folks, he was out a good chunk of this year, like, he can deliver you quality innings. I feel confident about that. Lugo, I would be much more afraid of signing a 3 or 4 year deal, which is what he's going to want and what he's going to ask for, and then him being 34 next year and also throwing more innings than he's thrown ever and falling off of a cliff. And that could absolutely happen. So if I'm choosing between Waka's 2-year club extension or trying to chase a Lugo extension, I'm choosing Waka. I don't know if either decision's the right decision, but I'm with you in the sense that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Padres pull that trigger on Michael Waka.
It's going to be one of the fun things of the offseason. That's a flip of a coin, really, at this point.
Let's get to Monday, because the Maginot Wall that is
before we do that,
streak.
Can I announce something?
Sure.
I have a new giveaway. It is for this Rich Hill card. And if you do not sign up as a patron, I am going to send this to somebody who is not a patron.
It's a threat.
This is a threat. If you do not sign up for the Padres Hot Tub Patreon right now, patreon.com, you might get this Rich Hill card in your mailbox. And then you are cursed.
So, Padres can't win 4 in a row. The 2023 Padres will never win 4 in a row. The only way it's going to happen is the day after the team is eliminated, when they go on the most obnoxious 11-1 finish,
11-game winning streak,
that you've ever seen in your life. The most obnoxious, most destructive, most narrative building, meaningless win streak in the history of baseball. I want to start talking about it weeks before it happens so that everyone is mentally ready to not buy into this bullshit when it comes down the road. But short of that, we'll never win 4 in a row. And one of the main reasons we'll never win 4 in a row is that Rich Hill is here and doesn't appear to be leaving. After the debacle of Monday's game, a game so bad that even my Immaculate Talk co-host Joe Sheehan, who had been telling me until last week that the Padres were going to be in the playoffs, and still this morning said to me, if you objectively lined up all the teams, the Padres would be in the top 12. There's no question they'd be in the top 12. He sent me a text Monday saying this is one of the most agonizing baseball watching experiences of my life. And to which I sent him James Franco at the gallows with the noose around his neck saying, first time, huh? So I just want to note to you boys, and I believe it was written by AC today, Rich Hill has done worse than Jake Arrieta in his time here in San Diego. He's thrown more innings and he's given up more runs. He's worse than Arrieta.
I have one question for you. Where was Rich Hill on January 6th? You can't answer that for Jake Arrieta. So
that's true. That is very true. I can't believe it, because the one thing I thought was that Rich Hill would at least be marginally better than bullshit Ryan Weathers. And he's been way worse.
We got the one start of like mediocre Rich Hill.
Yeah.
And then the rest has been just explosion on the launch pad, Rich Hill.
And every one of his post-game interviews is Rich Hill coming to the realization that his career's over.
Yeah.
Like, you hear it in his quotes. He's just like, well, this was just another piss poor effort. And I'm just bad. And I can't be this bad. And like, he is basically, I mean, he literally said like, sucks to suck, like after one of his starts. And he has been an absolute team tanker. And the only thing that I take solace in is, as certain members of our Discord love to just dance on that grave and spent all morning doing it, like, oh, Jackson Wolf was going to win these games for us? Because that's really what you're saying, is either Ryan Weathers or Jackson Wolf was just a way better choice for a team that was still in a pennant race. And maybe both were, I don't know, but
no, this AJ buying the bargain bin at the trade deadline. I mean, it just goes to AJ at the trade deadline. It's not a good condition, and we know it. We know him trying to improve the team desperately at the deadline, no matter what he's spending, no matter what capital he has in his pocket. It's not going to turn out good.
Yeah, and I just want to push back. I don't think that people are saying that Wolf or Weathers would have been better this year, per se.
Yeah,
I think they're
6
saying
years from now.
Yeah, you're giving up all of that control for 2.5 months of Rich Hill. And, it's Rich Hill is a 01 Toyota Camry that's driven for 250,000 miles and has been real dependable for those first 240,000. And those last 10,000, it's just the brakes are just squeaking, and it's like, you're not going to replace, you know what I mean? And it's like, Weathers and Wolf are, quirky new hybrid, Chevy Volts that might, I don't know. I'm getting lost in the sauce of this analogy, but you're giving up the upside. You're giving up the upside for a known decaying product.
Look, it was a shit trade. We said the day of the trade, the Padres lose this trade in every scenario where they don't make the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs, so they already lost the trade. And then it turned out that G-Man Choi has a grand total of 0 hits as a San Diego Padre. And Rich Hill has been the worst pitcher in baseball as a San Diego Padre. So bad trade, AJ. Bad trade. I understood the thought process, but this one really fucking sucked. So Rich Hill's worse than Arrieta. The Labor Day comeback was on, and there was this moment where every, Will Holder in the world, shout out Will, I will keep the flame alive until you pour, water over my head. We're coming back from 8-1 down. We're coming back from 9-7 down. The umpire screwed us. He was in fair territory. We would have scored. Like the whole thing. And in the end, it's Machado and Bogarts making outs with the tying and winning runs on base with the chances. It was just another big four bummer. It was really a perfect kind of encapsulation of all the reasons why we can't win 4 games in a row in one game.
I spent a lot of time making a video about the Padres' inability to win 4 games. It'll come out tomorrow or later tonight. And what was absolutely maddening, and I like you will hear it, is how much deja vu this team has given us. Over of the times they've tried to win 4 games in a row, they've had 2 or 3 opponents. They've been the same teams. The Phillies, the Giants, the Rockies. It's been them. The Reds also got one in there, but it's been the same exact thing. We have seen the same story over and over again, and I don't know if life is a simulation, but the Padres season has been strong evidence that it's broken.
Yeah. I want to shout out Kevin Acey, who, again, we plug his newsletter all the time. I really love his stat polls that he has in his newsletter, so he's doing good work over there. And he had one today that said, in 42 of the Padres' losses this season, at least one member of the Big Four, Soto, Tatis, Machado, Bogarts, has come to the plate at least once in the 6th inning or later, representing the tying or go-ahead run, or with the tying or go-ahead run already on base. They are 24 for 124 in those situations. That's a 194 average. So, this brings us to the part of the episode where we talk about larger stuff forces at work here. But do we believe that these 4 players turned into pumpkins all of a sudden? Or is there something larger going on within the Padres organization that explains why they are turning into pumpkins? And
maybe they're not prepared for these situations.
Precisely.
Right. And yet they're all, even Soto and Tatis, players with enough time in Major League Baseball that they should be able to recognize when they're not being prepared for situations. Or is it that they are resistant to the needed preparation to be ready for games? Soto is just this very complicated figure. He's a great character in an otherwise really shitty season of television that is the 2023 Padres. And you and I, all 3 of us, we were talking about this before we hit record today, that one of the issues of this season is that it's just been the same damn thing over and over and over and over and over again. We've talked about it, how they played basically 3 styles of game all year long, how every time they've fallen behind, they never come back, how they've never given us something different, how it's always just been false hope. And through all of that, we have this concoction of where we are right now as a club. And we can look at each of the Big Four and try and figure out where it is that they've gone wrong. And I think it's unfortunately so understandable to fall on big money, big responsibilities. These guys are going to come back. But the point I was going to drive at, I just wandered a second, was that Soto is the one I've had the most complicated relationship with. He's undoubtedly the best player offensively on the team. He's undoubtedly a really obnoxiously bad base runner. He's a subpar left fielder. He's 24 years old. He can do things no one else on the team can do in terms of driving the ball. He's failed in so many important situations this year for the Padres. So many times. When the team truly needed him, when the team was on the razor's edge after the trade deadline, struggling, he went 8 straight games without a walk, completely changing his philosophy at the plate. And it wasn't like he was hitting 380 with 8 homers in that time. He was hitting nothing. When they put him in the 2 spot, he bunted 3 straight times like an asshole in the first inning. And then this weekend, completely out of it and cooked, he homers 3 straight games. And, we're going to look up and he's going to have a 900 OPS, lead the league in walks, 30-something homers. All the numbers will be there. When Rafe and John go through it, they're going to, doggone it, he's really good. And like that's going to be the end of it. But he's not just that. He's been an obnoxious follow all year long. He's been goddamn frustrating. And that's why I say it's a really complicated relationship I feel like I have right now with Soto. And when you talk about trading him, there's a reason to trade him.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason to get rid of him. And there's also a huge reason to never get rid of him. So,
He said something this week that kind of changed my perspective. You are a crazy person if you entertain the thought of trading Juan Soto while you're trying to win a World Series in 2024. I have been firmly 2 feet in that camp. No way to get out. And then Juan Soto, who has lost us games on defense this year, let's not forget, he's had some huge moments where balls have bounced off his glove or gone over him. He said that Petco Park fucks with him. He feels like he can't hit home runs in Petco Park. That the gaps are big. That's nice. Sometimes I can put one in the gap, but it's really, really hard to hit one out of Petco Park. Now, some former co-hosts have speculated that that's the main problem this season, that the team has psychological problems about Petco Park, and I don't agree. I think that that's not true for the most of the team. But here is the team's best hitter saying that that is true. And if that guy is walking up to the plate every time with even a little suspicion that he might not be able to have the distance to get it out of the field, then send him to Yankee Stadium for every prospect they have where he wants to go hit home runs really easily. Like, if the dude is worried about hitting home runs in our stadium, that's a yellow flag that's very big. If not a complete red flag that needs to be addressed pronto.
Well, and Raphie, I'd put it to you like this. When I hear those comments, what it says to me is, why do you think Juan Soto would sign here in 2025?
Exactly.
If he's already made a decision that he's not going to make public, that he's not going to come back in 2025, and it doesn't matter whether, Seidler spasms money again, gets the perfect short on the stock market or whatever, and, finds $1 billion to give Juan Soto, that he's gone. Well, then I do think that objectively 1 year of one left fielder DH might not be as valuable as putting that money toward the rotation next season, or putting that money into a different part of the club's resource.
Well, and the thing to remember is that Juan Soto turned down a 15-year, $440 million contract before he was traded. So he's not going to take less than that. Like, he's just not. Like,
let's go ahead. I just want to point out that that's for 2 years. So that would have included this year and next year in that figure. So take away 50-something million from it and 2 years. And you get like the baseline for his free agency deal.
Okay, so 13 years and $400 million, let's say.
Yeah,
something like that. That's the baseline. That's still $31-ish million a year. For 15 or 13 years, excuse me. Do you guys want to hand Juan Soto that contract right now? That's the low end, but that's the bottom. That's the floor. Like, it's probably going to be closer to 500 million.
Rafe, yeah. Do I have any other people with long-term financial obligations that might be a DH?
Oh boy, you have at least 3 other long-term $250+ million commitments. What do you think?
Yeah. So maybe we trade Juan Soto. So maybe we really should trade Juan Soto.
So just to point out from like a prospect valuation standpoint, Juan Soto's ZiPS projections for next year are pretty much unchanged from which is that he's projected to be about a 6 WAR player. Again, generational talent, that your median projection is like 6 WAR. Okay. So it's still worth saying. That values him somewhere between if we were looking at pitching prospects, you could ask for about a 60 to 65 grade pitcher from a prospect standpoint. Okay. That's what the future value, if you're going to go by fan graphs, if you're an adherent to them like I am, like that's go ahead,
Mouth
sorry.
breather question.
Yeah.
How is a 60-65 prospect like 250s just about?
Like from a pure
Value-wise.
evaluation standpoint.
Yeah.
I can give you that exact number in 2 minutes if you give it to me. But just to give you an example of a 60 valued pitching prospect right now, Paul Skeens of the Pirates, literally the best pitcher available from a prospect
Only
standpoint. Andrew Painter for the Phillies, the second best prospect.
Yeah.
Like this is what we're talking about when we say that this guy is super valuable, because you are getting an incredible hitter. His floor is incredibly high because of his walk rate and his on-base percentage, and he has the potential to have 40 home run power on top of all of that. So the reason why we traded for him in the first fucking place, you know what I mean? And to answer your question, a 60 value prospect from a pitching standpoint, a 60 value pitcher is worth $60 million. A 50 value pitcher is worth $21 million. So it's actually worth like three 50 value pitchers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's very valuable. It's very, very valuable.
As we get into this back half of the show, I think I'm driving toward the idea that it's going to be more and more difficult for us to ever win without doing so much more in the pitching area than we're doing right now. And as such, over allocating toward beefy offense-only players just seems to be philosophically a huge mistake in one of the most aggressive pitcher-friendly parks in Major League Baseball. Quick note, Manny is not going to be playing the field the rest of the year, apparently. And he's got a real bad elbow. And I don't think there's any real need for discussion on this. I think Manny Machado is going to continue to play until the day the club is mathematically eliminated. He may play from that point till the end of the year because he's Manny Machado and he's about developing those end of year counting stats. He's about that baseball card. Or it might be Operation Shutdown time. I think a responsible organization would have shut down Manny Machado at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know he posts. He's like us. He comes here and he does it even when it's unpleasant. I've had tennis elbow since I was 13 years old. And here I am putting in the work for you.
So bye-bye, Manny. A brief moment for Austin Nola. A weekend report surfaced and a story in the San Diego Union Tribune, and again, Kevin Acee reporting that Austin Nola has been dealing with issues all season stemming from when he got his face broken by a fastball in spring training. And he has now been diagnosed with oculomotor dysfunction, meaning his eyes literally don't have the ability right now to track the way that they normally would because of the trauma his skull has taken from the line drive he took in spring training. And I want to make sure we put it out there, first of all, because we've said plenty of shitty things about Austin Nola this year, never about him as a person or, in any way his character, but that he was playing abysmally horrible baseball for the San Diego Padres and that they needed to get rid of him. And then they did, and he went to El Paso and he hit just as bad or worse. And it turns out, Occam's razor, right? Like the most realistic, simple explanation is the one that was the right one, which is that he got broken by that ball to the face in spring training. And quite honestly, it probably ended his career. He's going to be 34 next year. The Padres have 2 more years of control. I think it's close to 100% that Austin Nola will be at least invited to spring training next year. And I think in some sick way, unless we do a better job, he'll probably make the team as Campy's backup next year. But like in many ways, his career might have been ended by that line drive to the face in spring training this season.
That's if he can recover. We talked about this at the time because Musgrove was having his thing, and we were talking about rushing players back. And when this injury happened, Craig, I believe you said you'd be stunned if Austin Nola came back in 2-3 months. Or, not before 2-3 months. He had a
Right.
face break it, and then he was out there 2 weeks later trying to play Major League Baseball. And with this new information, it seems somewhat miraculous that he was able to hit 120 or whatever he was in the major leagues, that he was able to hit the ball at all. You know, uh, it sucks, man. Austin Nola can both be a sub-adequate major league catcher and also be somebody that we want to be healthy and happy and doing all right. And to have your career end with a medical, release would be a bummer for anybody. So I got him in my thoughts.
All right, we're going to talk about all the kind of systemic pitching issues of the Padres, and patrons get it immediately, and for everyone else, it comes right after this. All right, guys. And hat tip to Ben and Woods. I saw Woodsy talking about this a little bit this morning. It did inspire me to build this as our final segment for today's show. Let's look at the history of the recent San Diego Padres, and I want to restrict it to the window in which the Padres have announced that they were a team attempting to win. Because other teams that aren't attempting to win, every year in September, it's going to be bring up the kids, call-ups, experiments, etc. But for the last 4 years, the Padres have 100% been trying to win and win the World Series. In 2020, which wasn't a real season and did not count, and nothing in it that happened should count, and the world champion that year should not consider themselves such, the Padres went into the playoffs with 2 pitchers in their rotation. 2. That's it. They had Chris Paddock and they had Zach Davies. And that's it. If they needed to go to game 3, it was Craig Stammen starting. That was where their team wound up after Mike Clevenger and Dinelson Lamet took injuries. There was theoretically more than 4 starters on that team before. Everything else fell apart. You didn't have any minor leagues in 2020. You had kids running around at USD, and it was so bad that the Padres called up Ryan Weathers as a teenager to pitch in the playoffs when he was their first-round pick like a year or two before, or the year before. So 2 starters literally at the end of 2020. 2021, Ryan Weathers, Jake Arrieta, and Vince Velasquez took regular turns throughout the September rotation as the Padres went 11-34 and cratered a season in the greatest collapse in Padres history. By this time in 2021, it was Jake Arrieta, Vince Velasquez, and Ryan Weathers as 60% of the Padres rotation. 2022 is the best it's ever worked out in the history of A.J. Preller and the San Diego Padres. The Padres used a 6-man rotation for a great portion of the year. They managed to keep their top 3 starters healthy and relatively fresh through the entire season. And yet, when it came to the playoffs in September, October 2022, the Padres had 3 starters. They had Musgrove, they had Snell, and they had Darvish, and they had nothing else. Their bottom 2 guys had been reduced to being useless to the point that when they were needed in Game 4 of the NLCS, those 2 players double-handedly destroyed a game that the Padres led 4-0 in the top of the first inning on the road in the championship series. So you can't say the depth worked out in 2022 either, even when it was the best it ever was. And this year, here it is, September 5th, lamented, meaningless games, but Rich Hill, Pedro Avila, and Waldron Cauldron are sucking up innings for the Padres. And they're doing this while Blake Snell and Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo are awesome. Whenever they're healthy, they're great. And yet, we still, even with that, Snell, Cy Young, Like, again, take us back to the third week of March and let a little raven drop on our shoulder with a scroll, right? A little tightly wound scroll. And it says in Old English, Blake Snell will win the NL Cy Young Award. Michael Wacha will have an ERA under 3 and over 125 innings. Seth Lugo will pitch 150 innings with an ERA of 3.5. And each and every one of us would have picked this club for 100 wins. All of us would have said 100 wins, best case scenario. Padres are winning. How many games did we win the division by? My God. Snell's the Cy Young? He's our number 3. Our 4 and 5 are going to put up numbers like 2s and 3s. We're in clover. And this team has no depth. This team isn't going to be, they can't get through the season. Every year under AJ Preller, the Padres run out of pitching by the end of the season. Is this systemic? Is this something we should not blame him on? I have presented the case. I open the floor.
Healthy nevermore.
Is Chris? Is that how you're starting, or would you? Like me to
I quote the Raven that brought everything. No, their depth is crazy weak. I think about these teams like the Astros and the Braves, and all you hear about, wait, they're bringing up another AA, AAA guy. Oh, he's got a 4 ERA and doesn't walk everybody. The Braves have had 9 starters start 5 or more games this year. That's kind of insane. And that has to be the target. The target has to be that you have 2 guys at your AAA level and a couple other promising guys at the levels below that might be able to get you a start. And that, I don't know, like, I know how they get that, Craig. It's time plus good scouting, and those things aren't what they can do. So the only other way to get that kind of depth, to me, would be to trade somebody for 350 level starting pitching prospects.
Yeah. And, those are estimations. I don't know if that's exactly how much we'd be able to haul back for Juan Soto.
For sure.
This is all just relative. But I think that you can file this under the part of the argument for the thesis of AJ Preller, the star fucker, is why we're here. Because I don't just mean this because we have Darvish and Musgrove locked up on long-term deals, and they're now going to both, Darvish is obviously well over 30. He's going to be 37 next year, and Musgrove is Musgrove 30? Musgrove is 30, right?
Yeah, 31.
He's 31. So they are now declining assets, and we've tied those are 2 guys in our starting 5 who we've committed substantial resources to, and their health is going to be a question going forward. So, and that is, but that's not why I say AJ Preller star fucker. Craig, in our little
30.
He's 30. Okay. In our little write-up, Craig, you said, you wrote tin snap. There's no such thing as a pitching prospect. And the question is it all that bad of an idea what AJ Preller has done in the way he's constructed this? And when people say there's no such thing as a pitching prospect, I want to argue for what that means. That doesn't mean that you don't value pitching prospects. It just means that they do have the possibility of falling off a cliff because their elbows could explode at any given moment. And I think when AJ Preller's idea of there's no such thing as a pitching prospect, it's essentially that we only look after the guys who are Mackenzie Gore level or above, but that the other guys who are fringe you can just throw them away like candy. And I went through and I made a list from 2020 until now of all the guys who we traded away who are either fringy guys or were significant pitching prospects who were traded away. You have Joey Cantillo and Cal Quantrill in the Clevenger trade, Matt Brash in the Taylor Williams trade, Cole Wilcox and Luis Patino in the Snell trade, Joey Lucchesi in the Musgrove trade, Justin Lang in the Luke Voigt trade. I'll come back to him. River Ryan in the Matt Beatty trade. I'll also come back to him. Adrian Martinez in the Sean Manaea trade, Chris Paddock in the Taylor Rogers trade, Robert Gasser in the Josh Hader trade. I will also come back to him. Mackenzie Gore and Harlan Sosuna in the Soto trade, Ryan Weathers in the Garrett Cooper trade, and Jackson Wolf in the Rich Hill trade. That is well over a dozen guys who I just named out who were in our system in the last 3 years. And some of these guys haven't panned out, by the way. I don't want to just because there's I'm not saying these guys are all going to be studs. Some of them haven't panned out. Some of them are going to flame out of minor league baseball pretty soon. But some of them
we trade Louis Patino for Blake Snell every time.
Yes, 100%. The Blake Snell trade is a good trade. I will still defend the Juan Soto trade, even if we, whatever happens. The process behind that was good. The Taylor Rogers trade, you could argue for that process as well. These weren't inherently bad trades. My point being that for the Luke Voit trade, for instance, we traded Justin Lang. He was a young pitching prospect. He was very young. I don't even know if he had played A-ball for us yet by the time we traded him. At the time of the trade, though, he was rated as a 40-plus future value prospect, which is definition of fringe. 40 value is replacement player, and that little plus means that there's some upside that scouts see in him. And Justin Lang has gone on to not be a good prospect for the Yankees. But I say the 40 value plus valuation because that's what Adam Mazur is rated as right now. That's what Robbie Snelling, not for long because he will be bumped up next year, but currently in the midseason rankings, he was rated as a 40-plus prospect. And you just throw him out for Luke Voit, whatever. You know what I mean? River Ryan, who at the time of the trade, mind you, he's now a stud for the Dodgers, and it's he's a 45 value prospect. I don't want to say stud, but he's a dude. He's a dude now in their system, and given the Dodgers' track record, has a chance to develop. At the time we traded him for Matt Beatty, throw in candy, he was a 35-plus value prospect. That's not valued as a major leaguer. But you know who's the 35-plus value prospect right now? Pedro Avila, who's starting games for the Padres. So this is my point. When I'm saying, you're trading these guys away, and because you're saying that the organization doesn't value them because it's just we'll just find other ones. But then you look in the cupboard and they're gone because you haven't valued them. You don't see the inherent value in keeping these guys around. And so this is what ends up happening, is that we become so top heavy that we end up collapsing under our weight. And if you look at why, it's that the quantity is just not there. You need the quality, but sometimes you need quantity too, because in modern baseball, guys break down. So as long as this is the philosophy, which is as long as AJ Preller is in charge, then this is going to continue to happen. And sometimes you'll get a 2022 where guys stay healthy, but even then you end up snake bitten by the depth. So this is, it's not, your question was, is it that bad of an idea what Preller has done? My answer would be yes. I
want to point out the kind of dangerous cavalier attitude towards these guys, Raphie, by pointing out that Matt Beatty was also DFA'd when they traded River Ryan for him.
Right.
They could have waited a day or two to see if they might be able to get him for nothing.
Let me take a couple quick counterpoints on this, but because Raphie knows I agree with him 98.4, or maybe like Ivory Soap 99.44. There is a flip to star fucking, which is prospect hugging.
Sure.
It's one of the easiest things to do in baseball, and one of the absolute pet projects of some of the doomers in our Discord is to bring up names like they are Jesus themselves. One of those guys is River Ryan. I've seen Tevin talk about River Ryan 55 times to Sunday, and I just want to let everyone know this name, this hallowed fucking name, River Ryan, okay, is 25. He's pitching in Double-A, where he has a 3.51 ERA. He has a strikeout to 9 innings of 9. His whip is 1.3. And River Ryan wasn't about to come help or save the 2023 Padres in any way, shape, or form.
No, not at
all. And like Raphie mentioned about Justin Lang. Justin Lang's got a 1.5 whip at the Yankees AAA. Like, these guys could have all been absolute Burning Man mud, just sticky mud that you're wading through, that we're never going to do jack shit to help this club win.
And
by contrast,
think of the chess boss memories we got. We got a legit major league player who was a contributor for him.
Now, I think where we're in complete accord is that just continuously tossing away all your 35, 40s, and 45s puts you into a deficit situation, and the deficit comes due at the end of your marathon season, when your veteran arms are tired, when injuries have cropped up, and when you needed that summer depth to prop your staff up through the year. It's not at nut cutting time. It's not at winning time, championship time. Furthermore, this team had to make the Yu Darvish trade, had to make the Blake Snell trade, had to make the Joe Musgrove trade. And all three of those trades, I would submit, are unqualified successes for the San Diego Padres. Unqualified success. You needed that production from those pitchers, and you didn't trade away one thing that's jumped up. I mean, was Bednar in the Musgrove trade?
Yeah. But you still do it no matter what.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine getting 3-star players for your rotation and not giving away anything of consequence?
No.
Well, as of right now, in terms of 2023 impact, the only player of consequence that the Padres gave away in any of those trades was the guy we just discussed. I mean, Patino didn't do anything. And
Zach Davies, well, he wasn't a prospect, but
no, he's not a prospect. He's a nothing.
He's nothing.
He's a floater. So those trades worked, and I think it's somewhere approaching the same level to which I agree with Raphie's general sentiments in terms of a percentage that we're going to do this again this year, because logic dictates, A, it's too expensive to re-sign Blake Snell and Seth Lugo, right? Because option A would be run it all the way back. That means you take Walker's option, sign Seth Lugo to a free agent deal, sign Blake Snell to a free agent deal, bring everyone back. I don't think that's realistic or anything we should aspire to at all. Now we go to the free agent pitching market. Well, it's more of the same decisions. If Blake Snell's the best decision on the free agent market and Seth Lugo's the 4th or 5th best decision on the free agent market, and we've already decided we shouldn't make those choices, by definition, there's all the other choices are pretty bad too. We need to be bargain hunting. We need to be looking for the next Lugo, the next Waka, the next mid-range pickup. But the other way to build your rotation is to make one of these trades. And I'm pretty sure we're going to do that. And that leads to kind of my final existential question is, how do we break this cycle? Because I feel like if you did, and I believe the percentage of this is remarkably low, unless Peter Seidler is playing a chess game that none of us have seen or a poker game that none of us have seen. I think it's remarkably low that AJ Preller is anywhere but president of baseball operations for the Padres throughout this winter. So whereas a new GM might walk in and say, like, cold hard truth, we're hanging on to all of these pitching prospects. We're restocking our minor leagues. We're taking a step. We're going to get under the second apron this year. We're going to reset a little bit. We're going to trade Juan Soto. We're going to do this and that. Preller ain't going to do that. So how can we find the middle ground where we keep some of this depth this time, but also have a 2024 viable season?
You move players that can be contributors on for cheap to teams that have decisions to make. So Musgrove was heading for ARB, and the Pirates needed to get rid of him because they didn't want to pay him. You got to find players that are heading for escalating ARB years with not a lot of control, and hope that either A, you can swap contributors like Grisham. I can't even say Cronenworth in good faith anymore because that's not happening. And then you get like a 1-for-1 Diamondback sending Varsho to the Blue Jays type thing where both teams kind of fill needs. Or, Craig, the only other way is young, controllable prospect talent.
My fear is breaking the cycle breaks the window. And I believe that is the fear, the inherent, deep-seated fear of Preller, Seidler, and Stein.
Explain that, like the competitive window?
correct. That the Padres right now are in the widest aperture of their competitive window, with Manny and Xander only beginning their declines, with theoretically Tatis and Soto ascendant, right, with Musgrove not at the end of his contract, Darvish not at the end of his contract, etc. And so if we, this is the more practical version of, does breaking the cycle break the window? Means if we don't in any substantive way make a trade like this, or a major free agent signing to bolster the club's pitching staff, then we're going into 2024 with what?
The same
Musgrove
thing.
opening day. Darvish, we're hoping that everything is working out for you, Darvish, and that it's not one of these right damned situations where he shows up in spring training and now he gets Tommy John surgery. You know, like,
oh Jesus, why are you just saying that?
Right, you just hope that that's not the case. But I hate the one of like,
Ricky Bobby, don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
I appreciate you. Thank you. You're right. Okay, so just saying they're healthy. Musgrove, Darvish, Waka. Are we re-signing him?
120 innings of Waka.
Our fourth is Nick Martinez when he picks up his player option. Our fifth is Pedro Avila. Right?
Yeah.
We're winning a wild card with this.
But also I think your thesis is like, if we break the cycle, we break the window. That was the quote.
But by breaking the cycle, so now we're coming into 2024. We've got a wounded Musgrove, a wounded Darvish.
And the
Michael
cycle
Waka,
is we trade these young guys for the next Musgroves and Snells and all that.
But right, we have that, but we've broken the cycle. Meaning Snelling is here, Iriarte is here. Every one of our pitching prospects is Mazer, Lesko, etc. So that in 2 years, or in 3 years, now when it's time to call on AA, now we're into that Dodgers, Brewers, Braves situation of every time we're calling up somebody and it's a good person and it's a live arm and we're in great shape. But we fuck our 2024 and maybe our 2025.
The check is due, is to answer your question. The check is coming due next year. And I've said it the whole time, and I still believe this. If you trade Juan Soto, you're making the team worse in 2024. You are making the team worse undoubtedly. But part of your thesis is that we always keep breaking down. So it's kind of like, if we don't do this, we're going to end up breaking down anyway. So like we're kind of stuck, in between a rock and a hard place, so to speak. So I just think that like we are going to have a real like coming to Jesus moment as an organization and be like, guys, like we have a major problem in our pipeline. There's a huge gap that we have to make up for. And like, not that Ryan Weathers or Jackson Wolf or any of these guys like would have been, that guy, but we don't have that option is the point. You know what I mean? It's like whether or not they would have been, it's kind of beside the question. It's just not an option at all. The Schrodinger's cat box has been opened. So I don't think that there is I don't think that there is a possibility for us to get cheap, controllable arms in the system without trading Soto, which means punting on 2024. I think as long as AJ Preller is in charge, he's going to keep signing free agents or trading our prospects away because that's his entire thesis on team building. Yeah. We've seen it for 9 years. Why would he all of a sudden deviate at this point? Like he's going to keep going. So if you want that cycle to be arrested, you need to arrest the person executing the cycle, so to speak.
Arrest AJ Preller is the slogan of the Padres hot tub. We want him in jail.
Lock him up. Lock him up.
I meant arrest in the traditional sense of the other meaning of the word. But
cease momentum.
I'm ready for the Reddit
halting
comments.
of momentum.
Oh,
yes,
well, fuck.
Precisely.
I guess I have to return all this tactical gear.
Yeah.
Drill, baby, drill for more prospects. Drill, baby, drill.
When do we storm 19 Tony Gwynn Drive? That's what I want to know.
Well, guys, I think in closing, what I have been meaning to say for weeks now feels more appropriate than ever. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back later in the week. This is Padres Hot Tub, but you know what we really need to do is make the Padres great again!
Oh, God.
He's back.
He's back.